Good evening, everyone. Thank you for getting here tonight, the 20th of July. Welcome to the full council meeting of Tamworth Borough Council. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube, so please don't swear. Item number 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence. I wish to inform the meeting we have received apologies from Councillor Rosie Claymore, Stephen Pritchard, Ken Norkey, Cherie People. Does anyone know of any other apologies? Yes, Councillor Oates.
I believe we have apologies from Councillor Andrew Cooper as well, who is self-isolating this evening.
Have you got that? Okay. Thank you. Agenda item 2, the minutes of the previous meeting dated the 20th of May 2021. Could I ask if you have anything to raise regarding the minutes, please raise your hands to speak. Councillor Dr. Simon People.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to move the minutes as a correct record.
Councillor Jeremy Oates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If they're moved, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, councillors, for moving and seconding. I'll sign the minute. All those in favour? It looks like it's unanimous to me. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? I'll sign the minutes. Agenda item number 3, declarations of interest. I have no notification of any interests. Is there any forthcoming tonight? I'll take it then. There is no declarations of interest. Agenda item 4, to receive any announcements from the Mayor, leaders, members of the Cabinet or the Chief Exec. Can you please raise your hands if you'd like to speak? Councillor Jeremy Oates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under announcements, we'd like to move a motion under Rule 413Q, that's a motion without notice, that should a councillor receive a ping, as it's being referred to, or notification that they should self-isolate, and as a result they have to miss any meetings, that is not taken into account when doing their attendance allowance. So they're exempt from that ruling should they receive the appropriate ping, text message or email. And Mr. Mayor, the reasoning behind that is it's something that's beyond their individual control, and they are merely following legislation and what will be guidance going forward. So we'd like to move the motion that should a member receive notification that they are to self-isolate due to COVID-19, that will be an exemption from the attendance allowance rules. And we'd like to backdate that to the start of the municipal year when the government changed legislation to force us to have face-to-face meetings, giving us little alternative in terms of hybrids or online attendance.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder? Councillor Pritchard. Thank you. Has anybody any questions? Does anybody want to debate the motion? I think I'll go straight to a vote. All those in favour? I think that looks unanimous, but I will ask all those against. Anybody wants to abstain? Then the motion is carried. We now move to agenda item 5, questions. I can confirm we have no questions.
Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt, I did try and wave.
Sorry, Councillor.
I batted my eyelids and waved at you. So that was the motion, and I'm pleased that's carried, but there was also something else I would like to raise under announcements, and that is, I'm sure members are aware, but I'd like everyone to be informed and pass on their congratulations to former councillor Lee Bates and to current councillor Paul Brinley, who were awarded honours in the birthday honours list last month. So I just thought it's appropriate that the council pass on their congratulations and support the good work that they did during the pandemic. They're not the only ones in Tamworth. There were 2 other people who also received honours, and I think as Mayor it would be fitting if you were to write to all 4 people and congratulate them on being recognised nationally.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that, Councillor. We will move to questions. As I said, we've got no questions from the public. We have questions from councillors. Councillor Jay, I understand you would like to ask your question to Councillor Rob Pritchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the past 18 months, street scene has had to cope with significantly reduced staff numbers due to coronavirus, and we've also lost the services of the probation board in maintaining Tamworth's public spaces. At the same time, we've had obviously the warm and wet few months, which is ideal for the growth of plants, grass and bushes. So I'd like to ask, could the portfolio holder update the council and our residents on actions being taken to address the general maintenance in our estates and residential areas, please?
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question demonstrates all too clearly just how difficult the last 18 months have been for all council frontline services. On behalf of all members of the council, can I firstly extend my deepest thanks to all street scene officers for their work during the pandemic and all officers involved in the continued delivery of vital services during the pandemic. Members will be pleased to hear that the current burdens placed on street scene from COVID-19 pandemic is easing, and whilst teams continue to work in bubbles, we're hopeful that this will limit further disruption to frontline services following the lifting of national restrictions this week. All the news is not good. We would normally have a significant contingent of community payback workers to supplement our efforts maintaining a clean and beautiful borough. However, the probation service have still not resumed their work in the borough, and we currently have no dates when they intend to do so. Support has remained in the form of an army of volunteers who pick up litter in their own time, and the council owes them a huge debt of thanks. Without the help of the public, the council surely would have sunk during the height of the pandemic. So thank you to each and every single resident who works to help this council keep this town clean and tidy. Jurisdiction around different paths, open spaces and roads in the borough can lead to some confusion over who is responsible for what, and it's not always clear. Weeds in roads, public footpaths and the mowing of verges is usually the responsibility of Staffordshire County Council. Parks, public spaces and paths on HRA estates are usually Tamworth Borough Council. Canal towpaths are the responsibility of the Canals and River Trusts, and areas around major A roads and motorways is often Highways England. As part of the development of the housing maintenance offer in our HRA service, we're looking at how we can maximise efficiency in relation to ensuring our clean and green ambitions are joined up and consistently delivered across all the council's assets, particularly those that sit in our housing revenue account. Yesterday, I again raised with officers the need to do more weed spraying on our housing revenue account land, and this is currently being investigated by street scene staff to determine the level of resourcing required. It is important to point out that weeds on roads and footpaths we are seeing in the borough are the responsibility of Staffordshire County Council. Staffordshire County Council have informed me that their weed spraying programme in Tamworth started this month, and I hope this will address some of the areas the member is concerned about. Other areas that are often raised by the public is the state of the A5. Litter on this road is something that I've long spoken about, and currently we have street scene officers working nights to cleanse the A5 while Highways England carry out nighttime closures for maintenance, mowing and other arboreal works. Members will agree this is great news, and I'd like to thank Highways England for working with us. But as always, these major clean-ups divert resources away from other areas. However, the public have deemed this very important, and street scene have risen to the challenge. Unfortunately, we don't have an unlimited workforce, but I'm happy to discuss with Councillor Jay the areas he is concerned about and see what can be done to address them, including lobbying our partner organisations that share the responsibility for many open spaces in the borough. Getting the borough to look its best and be a lovely place to live is one of our top priorities.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jay, do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, I appreciate that it's the different authorities and different departments look after this, but I believe some of it is Tamworth. So would the portfolio holder and relevant officers give me 20 minutes of their time? I'll take you along a 15 to 20 minute route and show you the different issues and work out what's Tamworth and what's not, please.
Councillor Pritchard.
More than happy to do that, Mr Mayor.
And thank you. I have a question from Councillor Dr. People. That's a question to Councillor Doyle.
Thank you,
Councillor
Mr.
Dr. People.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question to the portfolio holder, as tabled. In the ministerial webinar on Wednesday the 14th, the Minister outlined the reduction to be made to the regulatory powers available to local authorities. In the light of recent experience in Tamworth, would Councillor Doyle take this opportunity to reassure the Council and our residents that the remaining powers will be sufficient to protect public health, especially with regard to COVID-19, and to explain what his message is to both the hospitality sector and the public regarding how to embrace the wider freedoms now available? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor People, thank you for your question. I would like to respond to the 3 points made within your question. First off, to the webinar. Firstly, it's difficult for me to comment on the webinar that you attended on the 14th of July, as I was not on that one. I hope you found it very helpful. Secondly, in response to powers available to local authorities. In response to the question of regulatory powers of this local authority, this is my response. As of the 19th of July 2021, we entered step 4 of the roadmap laid out by central government, and many of the legal powers available to the police and local authority under the various health protection regulations have expired. The regulations allowed enforcement action and fixed penalty notices to be used where non-compliance was found regarding the relevant step contraventions in force at that time. These related to areas such as travel, large gatherings, organised gatherings, and a range of business restrictions, including closure of nightclubs, dance halls, table service and requirements to collect, track and trace information, QR codes for customers, etc. As we enter step 4, Tamworth Borough Council will continue to work closely with our Director of Public Health, Dr. Richard Harling, at Staffordshire County Council in the bi-weekly Health Protection Board meetings, in which we will continue to review the COVID-19 case rate within Tamworth and any local outbreaks, hospitalisation data, variants of concern and the vaccine rate. If an outbreak or serious incident is identified, this will result in an incident management team meeting and actions will be agreed to bring the situation under control. Dr. Harling will continue to have emergency powers to serve a direction if a serious threat to public health is identified, and this could still require business to close or impose certain restrictions. Although many of the legal requirements for businesses have been removed as of the 19th of July, such as the requirement to wear face coverings at indoor venues, table service and track and trace and records, etc., the government guidance still recommends the continuation of many of these controls in certain business sectors, and our environmental team will be working closely with the business community to support them through this process. In step 4, businesses will have a legal duty under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 to update their risk assessment and maintain suitable control measures to protect their staff and customers from any ongoing COVID-19 risk. This covers areas such as improved ventilation, cleaning, disinfection and provision of hand sanitisers. Our environmental health team will be working with and signposting new guidance to relevant businesses over the coming weeks. There will be a legal duty for any individual who tests positive for COVID-19 to self-isolate for 10 days, and this will be closely monitored by the Health Protection Board and, if necessary, enforced by the police. There will also be ongoing legal requirement for individuals arriving from red amber countries to self-isolate, and this will be enforced by the public health teams and the local police. Regarding the final part of your question, the response from myself, the message from myself and the environmental team and our partners, which is brief and to the point. To the public, local businesses and members alike, it is to remain cautious as the pandemic is still not over and try and follow the latest guidelines. Regular guidance and campaigns will continue to be issued by the communications team at Tamworth Borough Council and Staffordshire County Council to make sure that all residents and businesses are aware of the latest guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dole. Councillor Dr. People, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I thank the portfolio holder for the detailed response and for the fact that he has reiterated the bit at the end about the need for continuing caution. Would he agree with me that this will continue to put significant pressure on resources in the council, seeing as we've had some examples of poor practice locally, and because we have a low jab rate, can I ask him to reiterate again through every opportunity the council has the importance of improving the take-up of jabs locally? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Dole?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I completely agree.
Thank you, Councillors. Councillor Dr. People again. If you would like to ask a question of the Leader of the Council, Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would indeed like to ask a question of the Leader of the Council. Would the Leader of the Council inform us as to what steps Tamworth Borough Council is taking to maximise the take-up of the opportunities for upskilling provided by the National Skills Fund by local residents? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Oates.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor People. And I'm particularly interested about the take-up element of this question, as that's something I have concerns about in Tamworth. But specifically in relation to this fund, the Economic Development Team, along with the Employment and Skills Officer of the Southern Staffordshire Partnership, will be starting a promotional campaign to raise awareness of the National Skills Fund for local residents. The fund will be heavily promoted to members of the Southern Staffordshire Employment and Skills Board and the Tamworth Employment Action Group, as well as through the local job centre. And promotional content will go out through our normal channels at the council, including social media and through the local press in press releases. Officers will also be engaging with local businesses to raise awareness of this fund, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dr. Simon People, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. First of all, can I thank the Leader for positive response? We've done a lot of work on raising awareness about COVID over the last few months, and I think this is as important for the future as that was for the present. The National Skills Fund identifies qualifications which the government has decided are going to enhance people's job prospects. And in particular, as a Glasgow councillor, the area I represent is a hotspot for low levels of skills leaving school. So I'm particularly keen to make sure that this is followed up in areas like Glasgow. And I particularly therefore would ask the Leader to agree to a meeting where we can go through this in more detail to ensure that the council will do its best for the residents of the town. This is an important opportunity for people to be funded to gain extra skills, and I think that's very important going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor People. Yes, absolutely. Let's have a sit down and have a conversation. And the reason I was particularly interested in your point about take-up was that we can promote this fund and other opportunities, but what we actually struggle to do very often is break into the communities where we really need to get that message across. So any local knowledge and avenues that the councillor may be able to bring to the table, I'd welcome. There's not only this fund, as I mentioned, there's also other opportunities in terms of apprenticeships, and the Borough Council has recently supported the bricklaying centre up at Amington, which I believe is the only one in the region, if not nationally. Just up the road at Wishaw, We have the HS2 Centre for their apprenticeships, which are offering engineering courses and the like. But there's also local stuff going on with really low take-up. There is currently a scheme throughout the summer aimed at people who are likely to be NEET, but certainly school leavers. And these are 6-week courses in carpentry, at the end of which they are awarded their CSCS card, so they can work on site. These are free courses. They're a 6-week course, 6 attendees at each one, and I know through dealing with them in the last few weeks, they're getting 3 applicants for each set of courses when there's 6 vacancies. They're undersubscribed. So whatever we can do, whether it's in Council of People's Ward or elsewhere, to break into those communities and get those messages across, we really need to do, because there is a huge problem coming up for us with the economy, and we need skilled people to fill the gap at the appropriate time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oates. Thank you. Now we'll move to agenda item 6, to confer the title of Honorary Alderman on John Faulkner, and I would like to invite a nominated to speak. Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I went to say Councillor Faulkner there, but it just shows how long he's been here. But John Faulkner has completed a long term serving this Borough Council, having first been elected in 1998. 23 years is a significant time to serve the borough, and in that time he's served many positions on this authority, both in control and opposition. I myself only really know him as his time in opposition, but many people talk about his work when he was in control. Personally, he's long served as my opposite in the chamber, and has also been the member I always prepared the most to face, both for questions and debates, and he always certainly kept me on my toes. So as a mark of professional respect for that alone, I would like to move the Council confer the title of Honorary Alderman on John Faulkner.
Councillor Dr. People.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I say, first of all, how pleased I was to get a call from Councillor Pritchard to say he'd like to move that motion as a motion of professional courtesy. I think it's great that someone can take that point and deal with it. Councillor Faulkner, as I spoke at the last meeting when he was with us, has served in a huge number of roles and always brought to them that sense of correct financial approach that we had experienced, and certainly when it came to the issue of the golf course, there were many of his Labour colleagues who disagreed with him. He was firm that it was an appropriate way to go forward because it secured the financial future of the council. And I think it's a tribute to him that after 23 years, one of which was down to COVID, that he's finally had the chance to retire from the council with great service and great respect. And as I said at that meeting, I remember Councillor Madge, who was formerly of the council, saying to me he always paid attention when John spoke because he knew what he was talking about. Councils are all the better for bringing that specialist expertise, and I can only thank the Deputy Leader for moving the motion and second it and reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simon People. Does anybody else want to speak before I do? Because I've known Councillor Faulkner, oh gosh, a lifetime, and I've always found him quite jovial actually, and I've never really had a political argument with John. He knew I was Conservative and I knew he was a Labour chap, and we got that respect for each other. I can't complain. No, John's never pushed his politics, but he's voted for his politics, and I've always had a lot of respect for John Faulkner. I can only praise him. He voted in by the people. He did what he did for the people, and he was conscientious about it. He actually did extra year than he wanted to. So, yeah, well done, John Faulkner. Is there any other councillor?
Danny Cook indicated.
Councillor Danny Cook? Was it you or the baby?
You'll probably get more sense out of the baby, to be honest, Mr Mayor, but I think you all know that. I think it'd be remiss of me, Mr Mayor, not to make comments here. Obviously, for Councillor Faulkner's period as Leader of the Opposition, I was Leader of this Council. Yes, as Councillor People and myself always say, part of that role is to throw bricks at each other. That's what's expected. It's what politics is about. But I always found John, outside of the chamber, an absolute gentleman, and I mean a true gentleman. We could sit down, either in the pub or the leader's office, and we could discuss a very sensitive topic. And whatever either one of us said went nowhere. It stayed between us. It was a relationship of two gentlemen, I always used to call it. We had mutual trust outside of the chamber, and we used that. We did communicate very well. Councillor People obviously mentions the golf course. Councillor Faulkner, I remember informing Councillor Faulkner in private of our intention to pursue the potential of selling the golf course for housing. And it was 2 months later we made it public, and it had not gone anywhere. He was an absolute gentleman. He was a councillor that represented people, and he absolutely understood that Tamworth Borough Council has to function. So, yeah, I'm happy to support that motion, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else want to say anything?
Councillor Ford. Councillor Ford. Councillor Ford.
Sorry, Councillor Ford. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I had my hand ready to be called on. I did prefer a long speech, but I don't think it's necessary. I'd just like to pay tribute to John as a member of the continual member of the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee during my tenure as chair for the previous 3 years. He provided a phenomenal amount of experience and insight. He understood the remit of the committee, but was never afraid to challenge the boundaries and always pushed for more. It's a common phrase that's thrown around that Scrutiny is the critical friend of the executive body. And if that's the case, then John was definitely the critical friend of the critical friend. I'm very happy to support the motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. And, this post is actually, we're going to vote on it here, so, but we didn't have to because he's done 3 consecutive terms. He automatically gets this title. But I would like to see a vote on it. So, all those in favour, please show. I don't believe that's unanimous. Yeah, that's 3. How many unanimous votes have we had? Thank you all. Thank you, councillors. And we'll now move on. And well done, John. Agenda item 7, the annual report of the Audit and Governance Committee 2020-2021. I will now hand over to Councillor Martin Summers to talk us through the report. Councillor Summers.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Pleased to present the previously distributed annual report of my committee for 2021. And of course, it's been a challenging year for everybody. And during the extraordinary times we've had, it's more important than ever that the committee is able to gain assurance that the council's governance, risk and internal control environment remain fit for purpose. While some of the committee's early work programme was impacted by restrictions arising from the pandemic, we moved seamlessly to remote working and we hosted our meetings from July 2020 online. And business as usual resumed. The committee was able to seek assurance against the council's response to COVID-19 and other significant risks, as well as continue to ensure the council's overall governance framework remained robust. And they, of course, will be continuing themes into the work programme for this year that we've already begun. But in addition, there'll be new areas on which the committee will be seeking assurance, of course, such as the council's transformation of the town centre, following the £21.65 million allocation of future high street funding, and also in terms of the reset and recovery programme. And as we hopefully move into post-pandemic recovery, well, this was written in March, the committee will continue to scan the risk horizon for new and emerging threats and opportunities, notably the council's response to climate change and cyber security. This all sounds very exciting, doesn't it? I would welcome us all to attend a meeting of the committee and see our work in operation for yourselves. And I'd like to thank everybody who was on the committee last year. We've got a completely new committee this year. We'll be sadly missing John Faulkner this year, who served on the committee since I started on it. but I'd like to thank members and officers who have contributed to the work of the committee over the last 12 months. I move the recommendation in the report. Mr Mayor, I seek a seconder and I reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Summers. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cook?
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I think the work audit and governance undertake is summed up literally in one of the first paragraphs. Audit committee are an important source of assurance about the organisation's arrangements to managing risk, maintaining an effective control environment and reporting on finance and other performance. That's exactly what audit and governance is, Mr Mayor. If Cabinet is truly the captain of the ship, audit and governance is the engine room. It's what keeps us going, it's what keeps us legal. And personally, I'd like to send a vote of thanks to all members of Audit and Governance last year and years before for the tireless work they put in ensuring this council operates legally. I've always taken assurance of this, as I joked with Councillor Oakes yesterday. What this report basically said is neither myself nor Jeremy broke the law recently, which is always a reassurance. I do welcome this report. It's been a long time since I've been able to second an audit and governance report, so I'd like to take this opportunity to do so now and thank Councillor Summers and the committee for some superb work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Are there any questions, Dr. People?
Just to comment, Mr Mayor, thank you. John Faulkner always spoke really highly of the committee and its work and its chair, and sends you all best wishes for this year, noting the inadequacy of his substitute. He had a wry smile about how he'd left me with that one. But no, he was very, very admiring of the work done by the chair and the committee and asked me to pass that on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simon People. Are there any other questions? Any questions? Does anybody want to start the debate? Well, this has been proposed and seconded, and the recommendation is the proposed annual report of the Audit Committee 2021 has been endorsed. All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous. All those against? Are there any abstentions? Yep, that's got through that one. We now move on to agenda item 8, the Scrutiny annual reports. The corporate scrutiny report will be given by Councillor T.J. Councillor J.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Obviously, as I already mentioned, the committee moved to online meetings and all members did an excellent job of adapting to that very, very quickly. I would like to mention, as it's pretty much a new committee this year, I'd just like to thank the members from last year, which we had Councillors Ben Price, some people, Martin Summers, work and fantastic input and commitment from them throughout the year. To work on the plan as required. Online, so they put that trust in me, so thank you for that. We actually got 12 meetings last year, the usual 8. I believe that's work ethic, but down to that's fine. So we got through the 12 meetings instead of the usual 8. We actually got through 5 policy development items, 7 scrutiny items, and the strong use of items some items we picked up were the potential legal actions, the post-implementation review of the customer portal, and review of key cabinet rooms. And we recommend an improved management process future projects with over £1 million to spend and projects of importance to the reputation of the council. Everyone came out of that session believing that we've done some excellent work that night, and it's good to see this year that the project governance has massively improved. And the dashboards we're all seeing for all of the council projects this year improved. So that's come from scrutiny work. And then the Gungate public consultation report, where we recommend that the Cabinet note that it's the public desire for mixed use, and that's accepted as well. So, yeah, an excellent year, lots of work done. And then just one final thank you, which I know we say every year, but I think it's important to thank people when they do a fantastic job. And that is Jo. She goes above and beyond. She does more than just a job. She goes above and beyond all throughout the year. And it is massively appreciated. I think, you know, if myself, we would good for a while. I want that meeting. I'd like to move the report, seek a seconder, and reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor J. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ben Price, do you wish to say anything at this stage?
And reserve the right.
Okay. Well, does anybody any questions? Councillor Dr. Simon People.
If I can just interject, please, Mr. Mayor. There appears to be a slight problem with the microphone, so we'll be passing one round for people who wish to speak.
Okay. I thought it was Councillor J's lack of knowledge of distance with microphones, but there you go. So with regard to the report, Mr. Mayor, it's a fair assessment of the work that was done during the year. My only concern is that at the last meeting, one of the issues was clear that the report, particularly the quarterly performance report, upon which great emphasis is placed, was actually significantly behind where we were when we were debating it. And in fact, when question came up about the market contract, we were told that we would be updated at the next meeting, and within 2.5 weeks, it was in the Herald. So I think the scrutiny chair needs to just address with officers how that is dealt with to make sure that the committee is kept up to date. But the work's been very rewarding. The chair is almost invariably completely fair. And I won't repeat this with regard to all the other committee I'm on, but can I thank them for indulging me with the opportunity to ask questions, seeing as I'm in a minority and it's not always easy if the chair wanted to be hostile. So thank you for your professionalism. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. No, thank you, Councillor Dr. Peter. Are there any other questions?
Councillor J wishes to come back.
Councillor J. Sorry.
Let's see. There we go. Yeah, it's not a question, just I suppose just in response to, well, firstly, thank you for the comments. But the point about the quarterly performance report, it's come up before where we've kind of assessed it as being out of date, or there's, you know, it should be updated before the meeting, but we must remember that it's a snapshot, it's a point of time. So if it's Q1, it's up to the end of Q1. So if we're delayed in reviewing it, it's still a snapshot of where we were at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Or does anybody want to debate this? Well, it has been proposed and seconded. I'll now call on a vote to approve the annual report from the corporate scrutiny. All those in favour, please show. All those against? And unanimous. That report has been accepted. Thank you. We'll now move to the health and wellbeing scrutiny. Councillor Claymore is not here, so Councillor Richard Ford was chairman of that committee in 2021, and I believe he's going to introduce it this evening. Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report this evening intends to provide the full council an overview of the work undertaken by the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee during municipal year 2020-21. The report went before the last meeting, which I believe was in April of said year, and any updates from that meeting were added in accordingly. In one of the most challenging years known to many, the necessity of this committee was more apparent than ever. The committee undertook its scrutiny parameters in relation to Tamworth Borough Council's response to the coronavirus pandemic, specifically how we were ensuring the most vulnerable in our town were continually protective. The committee also received an encouraging report on the work undertaken to reopen the town centre following the initial lockdown in spring 2020. External bodies also attended the committee throughout the year, with representatives from the CCG and the University Hospitals of Derby and Burton NHS Found and Trust giving updates on the winter preparedness, plans, waiting lists and referral times. An update was also given from the Chief Executive of Skivvies on the work they were undertaking on the impact that the pandemic had on young people. The committee was also updated biannually on the safeguarding of children and adults at risk of abuse. These meetings were attended by the portfolio holder for regulatory and community safety, the assistant director of partnerships and the partnerships vulnerability officer. Again, without turning it into a massive thank you, I'd just like to thank the whole committee for their work this year. We did a lot of good things came out of the year. As Councillor Jay mentioned as well, the work that Scrutiny would happens at Tamworth Borough Council wouldn't happen without Jo Hutchinson. She is fantastic in her capacity as the Scrutiny officer, and I can't thank her enough. Two special thank yous as well, and conveniently they're both sat either side of me. Firstly, to Councillor Tina Cammons, who attended every single meeting as her capacity as County Council representative. She was absolutely fantastic, took questions away and provided incredible feedback to the committee. And as well to the Vice Chair of the committee for last year, Councillor Paul Brinley, who led some fantastic work, and specifically in relation to the working group. I'm very happy to move this report this evening and hope for a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Brindley.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. And if I may, thank Councillor Ford for his absolute work to include countless agenda items that provoke very beneficial and very actionable debate. I'd like to additionally thank Councillor Grettrex, sat on at the front this evening, and Councillor People in her absence this evening also for their support in the Young People Working Group. I wish the new chair, Councillor Claymore, the very best for the forthcoming year, one that will present many post-pandemic challenges that we will no doubt rise to support her and those most in need in our community. So that all said, Mr Mayor, I'd like to second the report and I reserve the right.
Thank you, Councillor Brindley. Has anybody any questions? Councillor Dr Simon People.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to say that on behalf of Councillor Faulkner and Councillor People, that they thoroughly wanted me to thank the Chair and the Vice Chair for the way in which the meetings were conducted and the working groups. They felt that it was a very worthwhile committee for them to be on, and asked me to thank the Chair in particular for the leadership he showed at a time when it was extremely difficult to manage health issues in at all. So thank you from them to him, and it makes the new chair's job even harder that the previous chair was so good. So, but I'm sure she's up to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr People. Councillor Ford, do you want to respond?
Are these working? Yeah, they seem to be working. Just my thanks. Please pass on my thanks to former Councillor Faulkner and Councillor Shrew People for the kind words, and thank you for your kind words yourself.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other questions? Anybody got any comments? Well, thank you then. That report's been proposed and seconded. We'll ask now for the Council to endorse it. All those in favour? All those against? Abstention? Another unanimous one. Thank you. So the report has been endorsed. Now, the next is the Infrastructure and Safety and Growth Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Simon Goodall.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay.
So this report is the report of the Infrastructure, Safety and Growth Committee. It covers the work conducted 2020-2021. I'm not going to go fully through the report. It's been through Scrutiny Committee itself and circulated to all councillors. And I've not had any questions or comments forthcoming at the moment. However, I would just like to thank all members of the committee for their participation and input, and indeed their flexibility through this challenging year due to the COVID pandemic. I'd also like to thank all the officers who attended, and indeed cabinet members as well. And particular thanks to Scrutiny Officer Joe Hutchinson, who's obviously been thanked by other scrutiny chairs tonight. As I'm chair again for this year, I can guarantee that the committee will continue to challenge and indeed support Cabinet where necessary. Scrutiny is a very important function of the Council. Mr Mayor, I'm happy to take questions or comments and I'll move the report and look for a seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Did he propose?
He's proposed it and sought a seconder, Councillor Peoples.
Okay, sorry, Dr. Simon People.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to second the acceptance of the report. Can I say on a personal level, it's been an absolute pleasure to take part in these meetings, which are chaired so skillfully by Councillor Goodall, who always does it with respect and pleasantness to members. And I thought that came out at our first meeting of the current year, when there was a sensitive topic which was going to be introduced. He took the opportunity to mention to me as the opposition member in advance. We agreed on some language that would be appropriate to make sure that it was dealt with sensitively. And that's the kind of professional chairing of scrutiny that I respect and therefore particularly want to take the opportunity to second this one. I didn't want to second health and wellbeing because I don't sit on it and therefore it would seem rather inappropriate. And on corporate scrutiny, that I was beaten to it, so to speak. But I'm particularly pleased to do this one and in fact took on an additional committee this year in order to continue to serve on it rather than give that up because of something else that had come along. So I look forward to a positive year to come. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Dr.
I won't reserve the right because I've actually spoken on the topic.
No, I missed that.
It's okay. He said he won't reserve the right.
That's okay. Are there any questions? Are there any comments? Okay then, I will now go to the vote to approve the report. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Are there any abstentions? That's approved. Can I just say that's the first time I've been at a full council meeting in over 20 years that every motion has been carried unanimously, which is brilliant. Anyway, that concludes the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance and the comments. And I've really appreciated the behaviour as well. I'm really impressed with tonight. Let's hope the rest of the year continues. Thank you. I'll close the meeting at 7:01. Thank you. Right.